creating a new work order or quote, you will at some point need to add a part, tire, or labor item that you do not stock or will otherwise be outsourcing. For this reason, you can add 3 different types of outside items to your work orders or quotes without having to create a new item every time. Before you can take advantage of this functionality, you will need a few things set up. First, navigate to Inventory Entry. When you click the drop-down for item type, you will see that outside labor, outside part, and outside tire are 3 different types of item, and you will need to create at least one item for each one of those types that you plan on using in your system. To create a new outside item type, click on the New button, select whether this item will be an outside part, outside tire, or outside labor item, enter a size item, catalog number, and description. For the description on an outside item, you can call it something like miscellaneous or create a note for the technician such as enter part information here. You will also need to assign the item an item group as well. If you want to save specific outside parts in your system, you can, and even have an assigned vendor for that item. If you create an outside tire item and would like an installation package to be added to a work order or quote whenever that tire is added, you can add the catalog number of that package to the next linked item line of that outside tire in your inventory. If you send parts out for rebuilding or resurfacing or use outside labor for any purpose, you will want to set up an outside labor item in your system. Once you have these items created, you will want to go into vendor entry and make sure that every vendor from which you will be purchasing parts or tires from or subletting labor from has been entered as a new vendor. If you do add new vendors to your AutoFluent software, make sure to restart the program for those vendors to be available from an open quote or work order. There are a few settings to be aware of that will determine how an outside part is treated in your system. Go to Setup Entry, System Settings, and then the Defaults Miscellaneous tab. Under Vendor Outside Parts Defaults, you have a few settings related to outside parts. First, if you check Keep an outside part audit trail, the system will allow you to enter the vendor, cost, and reference number of each outside part added to a work order. Don't let outside parts create vendor bills will make it so that even if you put in the cost, vendor, and reference number, the system will not create a vendor bill for any outside part. If you pay for all parts up front and do not charge them on account, this would be a good setting to choose. The Normally Create Vendor Bills with Outside Parts setting will keep the box checked that will create a vendor bill for a particular item you've added to a work order. Check the Normally Put Bills Created from Outside Parts on Hold setting if you would like to manually mark bills as ready to post rather than have them marked as ready to post automatically. A bill that is marked as ready to post will be marked as posted when you finalize a daily report that includes the date in which the bill was created. Those bills will also post to your accounting software if it is integrated with your AutoFluent system. If you would rather use a linear outside part markup matrix than setting up your own markup rules, click this button here. If you want to ensure that all pertinent information is entered when an outside part is added to a work order, click on the Defaults Work Order tab. Under the Rules for Sales Reps section, you can require that before the work order is invoiced out, that the vendor, reference, and costs are entered. If you have a concern that your technicians may forget to add this information, these are great settings to enact so that there are never parts invoiced where there isn't a paper trail to track them down with. If you have your vendors integrated with AutoFluent and would like to mark up the list price that your vendor shows, click on the Interfaces tab. Down here next to Outside Part for Imported Lines, enter the percentage that you want to add. If you made any changes and saved them with system settings, restart AutoFluent for those changes to take effect. To set specific outside parts markups for each item group that you have created an outside part within, click on the Item Groups button within Setup Entry. For each group, you can set the markup percentage in increments based on the dollar value of the outside part. Again, if you have saved any changes here, restart AutoFluent for the changes to take effect. Once you add one of these items to a work order, the first thing you will want to do is enter a proper description for the actual part or labor item that you are selling. This information will typically include the part or tire's description, along with the vendor's part number or tire size, or a description of the work being performed. This will make it easier for you to locate this item later if necessary for reordering, warranty information, or when searching vehicle history. Next, depending on the type of item that you have added to the work order, you will click on either the blue P or yellow T. Once you have done that, you can enter the vendor, reference number, and cost for the part. These three entries are essential if you want this part to create a vendor bill in the system. The reference number can be the work order number that the part is attached to, the PO number from the vendor, or any other number that you would normally enter as a reference. Once these three fields are open, you can choose to uncheck this box so a vendor bill will not be created, or unclick the Ready to Post box so the bill will be marked as on hold when it is created. If there is any additional freight charge, you can enter it here. If after the cost has been entered, you would like to change how the markup is calculated, you can click the up or down arrows to recalculate the total slightly to fit the parameters of your selection. You can also manually change the price here if you want to. If you are ordering an outside part on this invoice but are not selling it on this invoice, click the Don't Sell box. If you are manually adding more than one item from the same vendor, you can click Copy Bill Info on a part that you've already added in the vendor and reference number. When you add the next part, you click Copy Bill Info again on that part, and it will copy the information entered on the previous part. If you feel you may be selling this same part again later and would like to create a new part in your system, click the Create New Part button and you can enter in all of the details for this new part and save it when done. If you want to keep track of the outside parts that you are waiting on that have been added to work orders, go to Inventory Reports and from the drop-down select Outside Parts Waiting. Here you can select a date range and whether you want the report sorted by work order number or vendor. As you can see here, if no vendor or reference number has been entered for the parts on this list, it will be much more difficult to track them down.